Thank you for attending, by the way. So Avacta is a preclinical biotech, building a drug pipeline and other products around our proprietary Affimer technology. Now, I'm deliberately going to keep this at a high level. I'm not going to go into a lot of science. Very, very happy to go into the science in the interlude, if you would like to. Science is your thing, but I'm going to really try and keep it to the key investment messages, if you like, to get across the excitement that we feel about the technology without digging into too much of the science. So, first of all, the Affimer technology, which James described, I think, genuinely a really exciting opportunity, is entirely proprietary to Avacta, so we own the platform. Undoubtedly disruptive, and we'll talk about the commercial and technical benefits of the technology as we go through the slides. Huge market potential. The incumbent, the antibody technology, there are a number of technical and commercial restrictions around that platform, and we have the opportunity to compete very, very strongly in a number of areas. We really are at a point where we've worked hard over the last 2 to 3 years to prove and validate the technology. As you can imagine, if you're trying to break into something like the therapeutic, the drug development market with a new technology that's never been into man, there is considerable work to do to build the confidence around that platform, to get large pharma partners prepared to pay up front significant amounts of money to work with you. And we're really at that inflection point now where we've been able to generate the data that gives me a lot of confidence that we can deliver those sorts of partnerships in the relatively near future. So there is a significant uplift opportunity. The share price doesn't at all reflect what we've delivered over the last couple of years in terms of technical and commercial development. So a real interesting point in the company's development. We'll talk about the technical benefits of the technology, but also we need to think about the commercial opportunity. And one of the really key ones that's getting particularly Asian pharma interested is the fact that Affimers are not antibodies. So where the IP is particularly robust and blocking from an antibody perspective, those markets are open to us. We have freedom to operate. So a lot of those opportunities, biosimilars, biobetters, where the Asian pharma are more keen perhaps than Western pharma, this is a real commercial advantage that they are not blocked entering into new applications using the Affimer technology instead of antibodies. And I'm sort of well aware that not anybody by many means understands the science behind platforms like this. So there is naturally a carefulness about investing in biotech companies. We've seen several relatively high profile issues in the market recently. So one of the things that I would say is a benefit of the way we've built our business model is the downside risk protection. So the first point, and I hope I'll get across this point as we go through the presentation, this is a platform, okay? This is not a single drug that we are developing or two drugs. This is not a binary opportunity, failure or succeed. It's a platform from which, with resources, we could create many, many different drugs and license them all. Okay, so first of all, it's a platform technology. And secondly, we're building a revenue-generating business. Early days, but growing revenue around non-therapeutic applications, so selling into the diagnostics market, for example. So that builds a level of downside risk management, I would say, in an investment in Avacta. And we'll talk about how those two parts of the business might be valued as we go through the slides. Okay, so the antibody market is huge, 100 billion of sales, mainly into therapeutics. It is dominated by a technology that's been around for 20 or 30 years. There are limitations to that technology because of the size, complexity, cost of manufacture, cost of development, and so on, which we can talk through in the interlude. But if we talk about the Affimer technology, which I think is far more interesting, unfortunately the video is not working quite how it should, probably because it's on a Windows machine instead of a Mac, but never mind. The Affimer technology does exactly the same job as an antibody in that it can bind to its target and block that target to create drugs or detect the target to create diagnostics, but is smaller, simpler, more robust, cheaper to manufacture. Very importantly, it's more easily adapted to make different complex and very valuable types of drug. So it is fundamentally a better enablement of what antibodies can do, and entirely proprietary to us, as I said earlier on. So we, as I said, have focused developing the affimer opportunity in two markets. Therapeutics represents a huge opportunity. When we look at the comparators, you can see that comparable technologies are valued many-fold where we currently are in terms of market cap. But there is risk, considerable risk associated with biotech development. There's no point in brushing over that. It is a more risky market than developing diagnostic reagents, which is where our revenue generation comes from. So what you should see here is a sort of balanced portfolio, if you like, of revenue generation, exploiting the technology based on diagnostics and other research products, with a real opportunity to create a hugely valuable business based on the therapeutic programs that we're executing. So we're focused on the immuno-oncology sector, and today's a good day to talk about it. Actually, I don't know if you noticed the news, but the Nobel Prize for Medicine has been given for immuno-oncology today. So a guy called James Allison and a Japanese professor called Tatsuku Honju, I think, got the Nobel Prize for Medicine today for their discoveries which created the whole field of immuno-oncology. So this is now driving a huge amount of M&A and deals in the pharmaceutical sector. It is without doubt the hottest area of drug development. And there are some key technical benefits around affimers that make it particularly suitable for immuno-oncology therapies, which we can talk about. Over the last 3 or 4 years or so, $30 billion+ of deals done in this space. Many of those preclinical. So another point to get across is that we do not have to wait for the affimer technology to be in phase 2, phase 3, 5 or 6 years down the line before these are very licensable potential M&A targets. There are many deals done at the preclinical stage in this very fast-moving field. So we have a focus on immuno-oncology. We're building a pipeline of really novel drugs, as well as more straightforward drugs that allow us to progress through the clinic and get that validation of the platform. So again, we have that balance of clinical progression with creating really valuable assets. And I'll spend a little bit of time talking about the Tufts collaboration that we just initiated. So for those of you who've followed Avacta for a while, we've just done that deal, and I'll say a little bit more about what that entails and why it's got us excited and why large pharma are talking to us about that particular drug program. Just a little bit of background. In the work that Allison and Honju did opened up a whole area around what are called immune checkpoint therapies. Again, we can talk about it later, but that whole concept of immune checkpoint therapies has been around for 20 years or so. But what's clear now in clinical trials is that immune checkpoint therapies alone give you a reasonable but not a stellar response rate in patients. So you need to do something extra, something different. And of course, with a technology like this, we can do that. So we're focused on applications like hitting more than one drug target at once, or using things called drug conjugates, which I'll explain very briefly, or looking at agonists, which are one step beyond straightforward immune checkpoint therapies. So these are the types of novel therapy that really get pharma excited. We've got a number of partnerships in place. Moderna, just to give you a quick update on that, again, for those of you who followed the business, we've now got to a position where Moderna have taken affimer drug candidates, lead molecules from us, and have the potential to develop those into the clinic. So that news hopefully will come through next year. Oncosec is a West Coast NASDAQ-listed biotech working in gene delivery, which is where Moderna are working, and also Fit Biotech working in gene delivery. There isn't time to talk about all of these today. I'll focus on the Tufts collaboration on the next slide. Let's hope this animation works. Okay, so the Tufts collaboration is potentially transformative for Avacta. The reason I say that is that when we have taken this concept, which we've now jointly patented with Tufts University, which is one of the top 5 medical schools in the US, When we've talked about this to large pharma, they have invariably said, look, this is really interesting. When you have data, you come and show us because we are really interested in this potential drug program. So let me explain to you why it is so powerful. So see if there's a pointer on here. Yeah, so tumor cells quite often, depending on the particular cancer, have developed ways of evading the immune system by effectively camouflaging themselves within healthy tissue. Okay, so the tumor cells here camouflage within the healthy tissue, and so the T cell, when it's surveilling this tissue, just doesn't see the tumor cells. So your immune system is capable of attacking and dealing with tumor cells, but if it doesn't see them, it can't attack them. Let's see if this works, hopefully. So when the T cell is surveilling this tissue, it doesn't see that tumor cell. So somehow you have to bring that tumor to the immune system's attention. And what we have jointly invented with Tufts is a concept where we use an aphamer to target a toxin, a warhead, it's usually called. We target a warhead to that tumor. And when that warhead goes off, what it does is it lights up the tumor so that the immune system can see it, more of the immune system is recruited, and ultimately it will destroy the tumor. And at the same time, the aphamer that we've used to identify the tumor is blocking that signal that helped it evade the immune system in the first place. So it is a really novel approach to recruiting the immune system in to attack the tumor cells amongst healthy tissue. Sorry. Try and skip through that. You're going to have to watch it all again. So the way that this works by attacking the tumor cells from outside and effectively lighting them up like a Christmas tree is completely different from other approaches where warheads are used to kill tumor cells. And this is why pharma companies are so interested in this approach. The concept is entirely proprietary to Avacta and Tufts, and we have all the commercial rights to exploit this. Okay, so I mentioned right at the start that understanding people have a degree of concern about biotech risk, and I understand that. I mean, I understand the science in a lot more detail, so I can measure that risk. I appreciate other people can't do that necessarily as well as I can. But the way we have built our business model to have a revenue-generating part of the business that provides affimers to allow people to develop diagnostics or affimers to develop purification systems in biomanufacturing will allow us to build a profitable business as part of the Avacta group. So we are targeting these applications where affimers have particular competitive benefits over antibodies. There's no point in us simply going head-to-head with good antibodies that work perfectly well in certain applications. So we're targeting particular applications where affimers have technical benefits or commercial benefits. We generated 1.2 million of revenue last year. It's not a revenue story yet, but in the next 2 to 3 years, that should grow considerably based on licensing affimers into third parties to develop products. So last year, we did a deal with one of the top 3 diagnostic companies, licensed an affimer into their development program. So that's Siemens, Abbott, or Roche. We've now got work ongoing with both of the other 2 in the top 3. So that's the work that goes on behind the scenes to gradually develop that pipeline of potential licensing deals to ultimately deliver the royalty-based revenue that we're aiming for. We've got well over 25, it's more than that now, evaluations going on in all of these different market areas. And I am pretty confident to be able to say that you will see some of those license deals start to drop through in 2018 and into 2019. Over the sort of near and medium term, there's plenty of good news flow to drive the share price. Now, my view is that the market responds mainly to the commercial news flow. The technical news flow is important. I mean, the technical progress is critical because you can't get those commercial deals without the technical progress. But I think generally the market doesn't necessarily understand the value of each of those technical steps. Nevertheless, But the therapeutic partnering, the license deals on the diagnostic side, these are all commercial steps that the market understands very well. I think will be valued in terms of share price movement. We are looking for a chief medical officer to drive our first Affimer drugs into the clinic, which should happen in 2020. So we're looking to appoint a chief medical officer around now. And again, a high-profile, big pharma, someone who moves from a very good job in large pharma into a company like Avacta to drive forward a new platform. That should be seen very positively by the market, I believe. So there's plenty of good news flow to come, going through to that first-in-man drug trial in 2020 with our lead program. And just a little bit about how you value these types of businesses. What I said right at the start was there's a significant opportunity for a value uplift in Avacta. I mean, in my view, and I'm sure you'll have your own view, but it's woefully undervalued at the moment when you look at some of the comparators. So there's a company here called Molecular Partners, which is listed in Switzerland. They have drugs in phase 2, phase 3. You can see the sort of valuation uplift. Here, Pieris, NASDAQ listed, has drugs in phase 1, phase 2. So really only 18 months or so away from where we are. And yet there's a roughly 10x increase in valuation, mainly because of that clinical step that they've got. So that's why one of our major milestones is to get the platform into the clinic as quickly as possible. Ablinks, which in my view is the better of these technologies and one that we consider ourselves sort of equal to in terms of technical performance, was recently bought by Sanofi for nearly £4 billion. They, of course, have drugs much further in development, so I have to put this into context. But Novo Nordisk was pipped to the post in this acquisition. So we know that Novo are still looking for an alternative technology, which is an interesting dynamic in this whole market. And these are the only players. Ablinks is out of the picture now. These are the only, in my view, credible therapeutic platforms, non-antibody therapeutic platforms. So that's the sort of valuation uplift just based on the therapeutic opportunity. I think I've got a slide here on an AIM-listed comparator. Actually, many of you probably know this company. Although their business is based around antibodies, the business model is exactly the same. Develop antibodies, license them to diagnostic developers, and get the royalty revenue stream from the sales of that diagnostic developer. So it is exactly the model that we're pursuing with Affimers. And even there, you can see that there's a considerable uplift in valuation for a profitable business that's delivering about 5 million to the bottom line of mainly royalty revenue. And that's not many years away for Avacta as we grow that revenue stream. James mentioned the placing in summer, which Turner Pope played a key role in. That was a very successful placing. We went out to raise £10 million to push through our programs to the clinic. And we set out 4 objectives, which, to be honest, largely haven't changed since the last time we raised money in 2015. And those are to develop the data and so forth to support securing drug development partnerships. I mean, significant drug development partnerships, not just collaborations, upfront payments that really show that someone's done significant due diligence to understand the Affimer technology and is prepared to commit cash to a partnership with us. To build a pipeline of Affimer drugs that we can license further down the line, to grow those revenues that we talked about and build that sort of underpinning valuation through a profitable business unit, and to get into the clinic in 2020. That's the first time the Affimer platform will have been into man. We're going through a whole range of animal studies at the moment, which are going extremely well. But 2020 is the first time that we will get the platform into man, which is clearly a very important value inflection point. So I'll leave you with the 5 key messages that I started with and take any questions if I can. Thank you.
Do we have any questions at all?
Alistair, with the Tufts collaboration, is
Yeah.
that a 50-50 split in terms of revenue you'll ultimately derive from if you out-license anything?
So I can't give you detail, but no, it's very much more in our favour. So it would be a royalty back to Tufts based. It's not a 50-50 split.
One more question, if I may. The PD-L1/LAG3 drug you're developing, what is the targeted indication for that, please?
Okay, so there are a range of different cancers that is relevant to. The question is probably directed at what indication will we go into in phase 1. And there's a challenge there because a lot of different drug developers are going into the same indication. So accessing patients is not necessarily as easy as you might want. So we're looking at a range of different indications, colorectal, renal, but there are some obvious ones. But as I say, the problem is that once you pick the obvious ones, then your access to patients can be quite limited because a lot of large pharma, just to give very briefly if I can, a little bit of background, PD-L1/LAG3 is a combination. So you remember I said that hitting more than one drug target at once is one way to take a step beyond the simple immune checkpoint therapies. That combination PD-L1/LAG3 is well understood. So we've chosen it to give us minimal risk, minimal biology risk, if you like, to get the platform into the clinic. Tufts and other things are the exciting stuff coming behind. There's only, although there's half a dozen large pharma in the clinic with those two targets, which should give you an idea that it's not pie in the sky, as it were. There's only one, which is Merck working with F-Star, that have a single drug, a single molecule that hits both targets. And that's what we're doing. So we have a single Affimer drug that hits 2 drug targets at once. You don't have to deliver 2 drugs to the patient, so it's a lot cheaper. So just a bit of background to people. So it is quite a novel approach, but access to patients is absolutely key. So picking the right, maybe a slightly smaller population of cancer patients, but you get access to the patients.
Do we have any other questions at all? What I would say is we're actually going to arrange an evening or a day to actually come down. And you've got 2 sites, one in Cambridge, one in Wetherby.
Yeah.
Wetherby's, I mean, I've been to see it.
Okay, it's north of Watford, but I'm sure many of you have been north of Watford.
It's an impressive site, but we may do a day to Cambridge. So if anyone does have an interest in coming down, if you...
no, extremely welcome. Yeah, please, if you are at all interested and want to come and see the business from the inside, it'd be my pleasure to host you.
Alistair Smith, thank you.
Thank you.